Today, we're here with... You won't even let me get through it.
I'm keeping one of these in. I swear to fuck I am.
Once again. Apostates on the Fringe.
Welcome to Apostates on the Fringe, a leftist and atheist podcast brought to you by the Atheist Society of Knoxville. Today, we are here with Al and Dustin, and I am Sam. And we're going to talk about some shit.
All right, what are you drinking, Sam?
I'm drinking the same thing I was last week. This is going to be the last time.
You got to change your shit, bro.
Siren Blonde Ale from Memphis, because Memphis makes good beer.
I agree. Al, what you got today? You look like you got something different.
I have Bittersweet Nitro Imperial Coffee Milk Stout from Left Hand Brewing Company.
Left Hand Path.
Yeah.
What's the alcohol percentage on that bad boy?
What was it, 8.9?
Damn. You go hard.
Yeah.
So I have a new one. This is the Sweetwater Brewing Company, apparently out of Atlanta, Georgia. This is called Troptimistic, and it's a wheat ale with passion fruit and kiwi.
That sounds tropical for our winter-themed episode.
It's so funny because the box was like seasonal. I'm like, it's not really seasonal right now. How long have you had this like box in your shop? But it was, at least it wasn't an IPA, which I had to dodge again like 1,000 of those just to even find that.
Yeah, I don't get it. Beer's not bitter enough for people.
Apparently not. It's actually not bad. It does. I've had their Going Coastal, which was an IPA that it's. This is a lot better than that. I'm happy to report.
Yeah, I don't like the Going Coastal. We talked last week about how much I hate IPAs, though.
Yeah. So what the fuck is going on with Texas?
They're fucked.
Hell froze over.
Hell indeed froze over. And 4 million without power? Wasn't
Yeah,
it? At one point?
At one point it was like 4 million. I read today that about 1 million people got their power back. There's still a lot of people that are without. They don't know if the people who have power now, if it's going to stay on or if it's going to go back out. They said there would still be rolling blackouts throughout that. So,
yeah, I saw that immediately after there was massive power failures, which also resulted in water lines freezing and just really fucking people over. There was this divide between, and immediately I saw coming from the conservatives who jumped immediately on the Green New Deal caused this. It was the frozen turbines.
So the turbines, from what I'm hearing, make up like 7 to 10% of the energy that is used. The problem is actually the fact that a nuclear plant's down, or nuclear generator, I guess it would be called. That's down.
The generator went down completely?
One nuclear generator,
Jesus.
And then several other power places, but it's all gas, fossil fuel, and the nuclear. It's like the turbines went down too, but that's not what the bulk of the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
The Republicans going to do what they can to turn this into their favor.
Well, and to your point, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, in an interview earlier today, was on local news, was kind of sharing the blame. He was saying like everything went all fine. We had nuclear problems. We had natural gas. We've had coal problems, and of course the windmills and the solar problems because cloud cover and snow. But then immediately went on Sean Hannity and was just like Green New Deal. Then Tucker Carlson, they fucking won.
It's deflecting over the fact that there's like complete negligence in how the power companies have been run, managed, everything for like decades. So how they're set up there, they have first here in Knoxville, our electric company, KUB, it's like an agency of the government. Our county commissioners make a lot of decisions when it comes to our power. ERCOT is not the same, set up the same way. ERCOT is the Energy Reliability Commission?
Yeah, Commission of Texas, I think.
Council of Texas.
Council, right.
Council
Which is
of Texas.
ironically named Electric Reliability.
And they're so unreliable
Commission
right now.
of Texas.
But so they're kind of like a non-profit, but instead of like being elected onto the board, you're appointed by the governor. 1/3 of the people that he's appointed to the board don't even live in Texas. It's 5 of the 15, I guess, don't even live there. So, you know, you have people who don't live in the state making decisions on how the state's energy is managed.
Because they kind of police every bit of it, don't they? And determine like how it's allocated to which of the companies, which of the wholesale companies who then divvy it up to the energy companies that then sell it to the customers, right?
Right. And then, you know, Texas has its own power grid. And all of this, it's all to avoid federal regulations.
How'd that work out for them?
Right.
I mean, they made a whole lot of profits, but...
And they're about to make a whole lot more because
It sounds like
Oh,
the
yeah.
board...
But the cost of all that profit is lives.
How many 12 so far?
That's what we call
We
capitalism.
can't even look at that number. Any number we see now is meaningless. We will not get a death count and know how many people died in this for a few more days, I think. I mean, there's people frozen. People are, like, burning furniture to keep their family warm inside their house. I've heard about baby gates, people going out in their car to try to keep warm and dying in their car. It's a tragic incident, and it, like, all could have been avoided had they paid attention, like in 2011 after the last ice storm they had, where everyone, like, it was a statewide blackout then too, and they were given, like, detailed instructions on what they needed to do to prevent that from happening again.
Do you know why nothing happened? Can you guess? Sam, can you guess why nothing happened? Why they were given these instructions?
It wasn't profitable?
No, because also it was voluntary. None of the things that they said that needed to happen to weatherize, to prep the pipes, to have de-icers on the windmill blades, to have...
Well,
Who's going to tell them to do anything?
Right, absolutely.
They're unregulated.
Happily so, by the way, because former Governor Rick Perry came out and said that they would happily keep the energy off for 3 more days just to prevent federal regulation, and it's just not working for them. They claim that Texas was so energy dependent. Well, they learned that they are not, and a lot of that is because let's call it what it is. They're science deniers. Mm-hmm. They don't acknowledge climate change, and it's not so much that
they don't even understand it, because that's why we're calling it climate change instead of global warming. How many people down there right now are going, "See, I knew global warming was fake. Look at all of this." They still don't understand. This is I don't really think this is going to educate the majority of them.
Well, it's not so much that it's just rising temperatures globally, which of course is still happening, but it's also the volatility of the weather and how extreme it is. I mean, we see it with the hurricanes, we see it with the drier weather in California that's driving wildfires, also in Australia. But now we're seeing more intense and colder weather in areas that typically are unseen. I mean, these people haven't witnessed this, and I mean, there was record-breaking snowfall in a lot of areas. So it's just something that, because they deny this, they're not taking appropriate action to prepare their energy grid for it. They think, we're Texas, we're fine. We have this thermal energy.
They would have to completely overhaul their systems, and they aren't ready for that.
It's not that they're not ready. They don't want to spend the money on that.
That's precisely right, because it was voluntary, they're not doing it. They know what they have to do. They were told, again, like we talked about earlier, in 2011, and their inaction to make a profit and not care about the people has cost lives.
So, like, if they were federally regulated, they'd be required to run their generators during a time of need, which this would be a time of need. They don't have to. And so they weren't, and that's contributed to so many being without power. If they had run their generators, more would have power right now.
It sounds like their system's set up to make a few people very rich, like you said about the people that were in positions and not even in the state. Like, that's a pat on the back job. That's funding somebody.
And of course, Jerry Jones, the billionaire, I believe he owns the Dallas Cowboys, has a stake in a natural gas company. He's poised to make a surge in profits because of the increase of the demand. It went up to 9,000 per.
Right, I've been seeing people posting their CenterPoint electric bills that are in the thousands of dollars this month because of the power being out and just the cost of energy right now down there.
And yet they, again, like we talked about earlier, they come out and say, oh, no, it's the clean energy, it's the Green New Deal. This is why we don't need the Green New Deal here in Texas. But that's just not factually correct. I mean, we looked at the numbers.
They understand that's true.
How are you going to blame the Green New Deal when the Green New Deal isn't even in effect? It's like non-existent. It's an idea right now.
It's more a propaganda line to get their people to be against the Green New Deal. Like we've seen with COVID, this is another case of the world is collapsing and billionaires are setting up to make profit off of it. Just with COVID, billionaires made even more money. People are making money off of this disaster right now. And they're setting up the system right now so that when future disasters come in, they can still profit off of people's death and suffering.
So the other people who are going to end up profiting off of this are like the CEOs and people from Red Cross and all the agencies that end up going in to help afterwards. So I was going to get into how we can help. One thing that bothered me the other night when I was talking to a friend down there is I kept asking, how can we help? What can we do? And he was basically like, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, you can't send people down there with so fucked up.
There's nothing anybody can do right now. But by the time this episode comes out, there's going to be ways that we can help. And I know a lot of people are going to want to. I would strongly suggest looking at mutual aid organizations down there and groups down there, because the mutual aid groups, they're from that city. They know the specific needs of those towns, whether it's Austin, Houston, or any of the other ones out there. They know what needs to be done to meet the needs, and they're not going to look over the people that typically do get looked over when these people come in. They also don't have CEOs making hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. There's no payroll. These mutual aid groups most of the people in them are doing it because they think it's the right thing to do. They want to help their community. They want to see their community strive instead of, be suffering. So if you're going to give, definitely give to mutual aid, and our social media accounts will have all that information. I've collected several different groups that are working in different areas of Texas.
Yeah, and I'll also post that image that you sent that had all the list of the mutual aid. That will be posted on our show notes on apostatepod.com for anyone who would be interested in giving money to those groups to help those people there that need it. And I kind of want to roll back to how, when this all happened, the GOP does what they do and they shift blame. And initially, again, they were jumping on the windmills, and then people immediately started pointing out, like, yo, we have windmills in the Arctic that run just fine. And there's stats that say they can run normally, the ones we have, between -4 and up to 104 degrees when they're properly maintained. This is a person issue, not a mechanical. Well, I mean, not a product issue. As long as they're properly maintained and weatherized, they would have worked just fine.
Yeah, that's the thing. They weren't weatherized,
and that's not even the problem. I'm actually going to quote some numbers here from ERCOT themselves when they held a meeting here. They said that roughly 46,000 megawatts of generation was forced off the grid in Texas. Of that, 28,000 megawatts is from thermal sources, so coal, natural gas, nuclear energy, and 18,000 megawatts is from renewable sources such as wind and solar. That's from what's lost. So 61% of all that loss was from thermal sources, and 39% from the renewable sources. But guess which one they shit on? Guess which one that they decried and said we don't need? That's why we need. Yeah, because they have a hard on for coal and gas. Especially in Texas.
That's who runs the state. That's who are set to benefit from things. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's the percentage of non-renewable resources that even power their systems?
Well, so according to the latest numbers, it was 23% from renewable total. So, but that's including solar and wind. I don't have the exact breakdown of that, but I believe that was so. Then the rest would be nuclear, natural gas.
Yeah.
And
even if all of their renewable went down, it still wouldn't be as bad as they're acting like that's the actual problem, but they could lose all that and still have 80% of their system up if that worked perfectly.
Right, but again, they not only were they not maintaining the wind, but they also didn't properly weatherize the gas
Self-sabotage.
pipelines.
They don't want to.
Well, they didn't want to spend the money because
And they don't believe in climate change either, so they don't see that this is going to be a problem.
Or what if, and hear me out, they just feel this is just collateral damage because if this only happens once every 8 or 9 years, it only results in 20 or 30 deaths. That's just a write-off.
Or
It is collateral damage. They
Or
don't
even
care.
worse than collateral damage. Like I said, people are making a profit off these disasters.
And so I have a lot of friends down there that are getting really frustrated with seeing people online, though, and being like, oh, but you guys wanted to succeed, and, making little ha-ha comments. And I know a lot of leftists down in Texas. And so
they have some very big cities that are very leftist.
Yeah, and they're having a rough time seeing those kinds of comments because, as one of my friends said, is you don't understand the voter suppression and corruption that we're dealing with down here.
It's the same thing's true in Tennessee.
Yeah, right. A lot of people will look at Tennessee and think we're all anti-abortion and stuff like that, and we're proof that's not the case. And there's a lot of us here.
There are.
There's
still
voter
drowned out.
suppression. There's the gerrymandering.
The gerrymandering. Texas is, especially in those districts that are near the heavy blue areas. If you see those maps, they are gerrymandered as fuck. It's awful, and that's how they keep the house, the state house, the way it is. That's
some of the worst politicians come out of Texas.
But that's like with the ERCOT. There's nothing that Texans can really do to fix this because even if they get angry enough to get all of the people sitting on the board fired, well, the governor's just going to appoint more people who are exactly the same. And how do you go about changing the entire structure of ERCOT? That's what they would need to do to make it like a true nonprofit.
They would need to actually change their voting, who they're voting for. Is this going to actually wake them up and make them
as I
stop
said,
voting
the voter
for Ted
suppression
Cruz over and over again? I mean, you can the only way Republicans are always going to win with they have to cheat to win.
Right, but how do you? I mean, Republicans are always going to vote for Republicans.
Yeah. So how do you change the people that are? You don't. You can't. You can't change the hardcore Republicans that they've the only way to beat gerrymandering is to get the people in the gerrymandered areas to switch their voting stance. They're the ones fucking everyone over.
The problem is that Democrats in most of those areas are already at a -5 advantage. So they have to overcome that 5-point advantage just to be neutral because of the gerrymandering. And so that's a problem. And going back to your point about people being angry at the board, I know that we both saw where their website, they removed all identifying information from everyone that sat on the board of ERCOT because...
they were getting death threats.
Who would have thought?
Good thing I don't live anywhere near
Texas.
Right.
When you have people having to heat their food in their cars, with filling bathtubs with snow just to fill their toilets so they can use it.
A mother and her child died in their car trying to stay warm.
Mm-hmm. That's just tragic, man.
And, as a single... parent, I think about that, being in that situation, to be so desperate to have to be in the car with my child. The fuck?
I mean, the majority of people, and especially in Texas, would not be prepared to keep themselves warm during a power outage. So none of these people were prepared, and these are massive areas that were struck. And
it's Texas. Most of them down there can't even justify buying a winter coat.
Mm-hmm.
They can take all the advice on what to do to prepare, but they're just never going to be prepared enough because it's Texas. They don't get that kind of weather. But
it's going to be more common to get that kind of weather going forward because
climate change. This is
going to happen more often, and I think
climate disasters will be more often. But
who wants to take bets that nothing happens with their
I don't think so.
their gas lines and
I don't think so.
You don't think they'll make any changes even
I
after
don't
this?
think this is going to change anything. I don't think that this is going to change who they vote for. I don't think this is going to change their systems that are in place. Did anything happen after Katrina? Did New Orleans start?
I don't know, but they're
right people?
already comparing this to Katrina. I've heard.
Did that really turn
it's because
around
it's the government inaction as a result of this severe.
Is Louisiana
it's a natural disaster down there, obviously.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they didn't take care of the roads. The roads are still fucked up down there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't do anything. And some of it, like the fire department can't put out fires because the water pressure's too low there. So they're literally having to just watch houses burn. And these houses are burning because people are burning fucking furniture, clothes, and shit that you really shouldn't be burning inside your fireplace because they're desperate to stay warm. Like, the city totally neglected all these people. And
Don't forget the pandemic's still going on, too.
Right. I heard, and I can't verify this, but I heard there was a town talking about how they're going to end up having to go around putting like red X's on the door to signify, there's bodies in those houses.
Yeah, that's literally this is apocalypse status. What was that shitty 2000s movie? Like
The Day After Tomorrow.
The Day After Tomorrow. This is Day After Tomorrow. This is shitty 2000s fear mongering.
I want to correct where I said the number for the people died is meaningless. I shouldn't have said meaningless. I mean, it's not a reflection of how many people have died so far. Any number we have right now for media is not a true reflection of the number of people that are currently dead. Because
that number will rise as we discover what's actually going on. Because, I mean, it's not like...
What was
it's not like they have communications out there, right? I mean, are there...
They have. Like I said, I've talked to quite a few people.
But, I mean, people that have landlines, are those down right now? Like the elderly that...
I think landlines are probably down. I mean, because if you don't have power...
Well, generally, most landlines actually draw their power. It depends on... But if their phone itself is a digital phone, like everything in today is, then, of course, it won't work. Like, they'd have to have an old-style phone that runs solely off of that. So if you have these old folks that solely have landlines, they don't have cell phones, then those people, are going to be... We don't know the status of them. And
yeah,
so there could be...
I think there's like 6 people, so that, I mean... But I've known, like, I know they were doing, like, the rolling blackouts, but the rolling blackouts were more like rolling, you have power for 30 minutes to an hour, because everything was blacked out. So they, like, different spots in town would get power for, like, an hour or 30 minutes somewhere in there. And so they'd charge everything, and then but they apparently still had, like, internet and stuff, because I'm still hearing from people.
But some of the rolling blackouts I've heard are lasting more than 24 hours in some areas, and so...
Well, that's what I said. Like, it's not rolling blackouts. There's a blackout, and they have rolling power going through to give people little short spurts of power. Like,
And that's just now. That's days ago when it first went down. Like they were off for at least 2 days.
I've heard of people that have gone 72 straight hours without power.
That's brutal, man. I don't know, and that's and the temperatures hit in the 0 degrees, and so homes slowly lose heat and get sub 32 inside your home. And that's when there's a lot of damage to homes down there. Homes are being destroyed because those water pipes are bursting.
It's even worse because they're bursting, and then it gets warm enough that the water, like, thaws, and then it floods, and then it freezes again. So they're just getting, like, completely fucked.
Yeah, I really do feel for the people of Texas. I know I have several people that live in Texas now. So far, none of them have really had any issues, but I don't really have anyone in the Houston area. I know Houston was hit kind of fairly hard.
Houston was hit, and a lot of the people I talked to in Houston were really upset because while their homes and neighborhoods are completely without power, they could see the glowing lights from downtown, where all those businesses had their lights like normal, normal day, just glowing.
I want to talk about that because this, while not Texas, just north of that in Oklahoma, they are doing blackouts to control the power, and they kept the stadium on for the Oklahoma City Thunder basketball game, who I think they said they wanted to cancel the game, but the NBA made them play it. So guess where the power was? They made sure there was power for that while homes were turned off.
I think it was
capitalism at work, y'all.
I think it was in Houston. I can't remember the name of the town, but a reporter went and drove through and, like, really wealthy neighborhood. I think I heard on maybe Worst Year Ever with Robert Evans, he was saying it is with, like, the top 20 most wealthy neighborhoods in the United States. power, heat. You can see steam coming out. Like that neighborhood's maintained power this whole time. So it's
Rich people will always be fine.
Right. It's preferential blackouts is what's happening.
And they'll find a way to benefit off
Is that why they're comparing this to Katrina because of the impoverished areas that were okay? I mean, you're nodding, but
yeah, I mean that's well. I mean, the person I talked to yesterday is like, even he was in kind of a like upper middle class from what it sounded like, and he said he was without power. So it's not just like, I mean, the super wealthy maybe it does, but they're not too discriminatory on that.
Yeah, it depends on how bad the disaster is to how wealthy you have to be affected by it.
If you're going to do a rolling blackout, take the fucking power away from downtown. Those businesses can't operate right now. Mm-hmm. Why do they need all their lights on?
No one's driving there anyways. I mean, they're all just trying to survive right now.
Like, everything's shut down. Take the power away from downtown, the businesses downtown.
Alistair, that would almost be too logical. I don't understand why you would think they would do that. I mean, logic is...
Yeah, I just imagine people sitting downtown and those businesses like, where are all the people? Like, everything's up. Where are they? We're ready for business. It's really slow today. Oh, well.
Yeah, again, logic is thrown out the window for profits and also, I guess, the care for the loss of human life. I mean,
let's also talk about what's really important. This is a ecological disaster. This is completely killing all of the wildlife in Texas.
Yeah,
that's even more important to me.
They're not equipped for this kind of cold.
Oh, no.
Yeah, like...
You know what? I haven't even thought about that. That's a very good...
I actually have a friend who posted on Facebook that her sister, who has some like chickens and hens and all of this stuff in her yard, and she was worried about them, so she brought them inside to try to keep all her birds nice and warm, man. They're all dead.
Yeah, this is, I mean, that's livestock, but like this is an ecological disaster. Like the wildlife is dead. Like this is an extinction event.
Well, yeah, if you can't keep your
like armadillos, everything,
yeah.
every animal
the
in
armadillos.
Texas, every single animal in Texas is not prepared for this, even worse than fucking people are.
Yeah.
And those effects are going to be felt a lot longer than just people not having power for a couple of weeks. This is ecological disaster. This is ecological collapse.
And we're kind of segueing into the science of climate change and what's going to continue to happen, but it's going to keep happening. And to what you all are saying, you're right. It will be an ecological disaster because, they're not going to be able to adapt this quickly. And
we have armadillos up here. Aren't we sure they're not?
They need to come up here. Send your armadillos up here.
I'm down for taking armadillos.
Have you not seen
I know they
here?
carry
I haven't
leprosy,
seen any.
but
Ever since you pranked me with
one.
that April Fool's armadillo prank where everyone texts me asking for armadillos. I've been looking for them. That was funny, by the way. But I've been looking to see if I can see an armadillo, but no, not so much, unfortunately.
I saw one. I think I was over in the around Smoky Mountains.
Really?
And on the side of the road, I saw an armadillo. It tripped me out because I haven't seen one.
I would not know what the fuck it was. Be like, whose dog is that?
Right? Like, well, I lived in Texas for a while as a kid, and I like distinctly remember armadillos everywhere. So when I saw one here, I'm like, what the fuck? And I was like, so I went and looked it up, and sure enough, yeah, they're migrating up here. There's more out in West Tennessee than on our side of the state, but there are some over here.
I've seen pictures of them trying to save sea turtles that were freezing.
Oh, man.
But I'm sure that for every sea turtle they save, there's a dozen they couldn't. Like,
yeah, the fish in the lakes and stuff down there.
Everything's dead.
That's a very good point.
Texas is going to be a wasteland.
I'm over here thinking. I was solely thinking about the loss of human life. You guys are absolutely correct.
Honestly, I care more about wildlife.
I mean, no, you guys are right. We definitely lost more wildlife from this, and it's going to continue to happen as long as the GOP and those in control of the
they don't give a shit
energy
about wildlife.
Well, you're right.
Yeah,
but as long as they continue to
the world
deny
could
climate
collapse,
science,
and
it's going to keep
billionaires
happening.
will be fine living in their fucking bunkers. They don't give a shit about anything. Like I said with the pandemic, like. They made billions more dollars off of the pandemic. Disaster is business, and they are setting up they're setting up for the upcoming apocalypse to make profit from it and be fine. They're going to be fine no matter what happens to anybody else.
Oh yeah, I mean I wish I had the numbers in front of me.
I mean,
because
this is an apocalypse event.
The numbers that skyrocketed for the price of electricity per megawatt hour. Went to its max at like $9,000, wasn't it?
Right.
Per
it
kilowatt hour?
was going to make the average person's home electric run at like $465 a day.
A day.
A day. There are already people who are getting their power back to get I think CenterPoint's one of the big electric companies down there.
So
So
where's
they're-
the revolution? They're just
they're
going to
like-
keep voting Republican.
Checking their email to see their electric bill already in there, and it's already in the
Yeah.
thousands.
Sam-
What are they going to do?
I doubt you read this particular article, so I'm going to quiz you. So it shot to 9,000. Where do you think it started?
It's over 9,000.
It's not over 9,000. It's at
Okay.
9,000. I think
It's
I think
at
I think that's the cap according to their laws. But where do you think it started prior to the surge?
Where what started?
The price per the kilowatt hour or kilowatts.
In Texas?
It surged to 9,000. What do you think it started at?
San Antonio? No.
$20.
Oh,
It surged from
$20.
$20
That's what you're
to
talking about.
$9,000.
Yeah. So, and I think they just did a vote in Texas where they pretty much decided that that it's okay for them to charge more for electricity. That it's even though this is
So-
like a dire situation,
No.
the price should reflect the scarcity, and so completely screw these people that are already fucking suffering.
So what the fuck is the Biden administration doing? Or are the liberals done patting Biden on the back?
Well,
I
as long as
haven't
they're
heard.
they're avoiding federal regulation, I'm not sure there's much
There's-
of the Biden
right.
administration they can do because
There's
they're
not.
trying to remain independent. In fact, they're only connected to two minor other power grids, one in Mexico and one on the eastern side. And of that, they only got 400 kilowatt hours from Mexico and 1,200 from the eastern side. They're, for the most part,
1,200 from the eastern side.
I think so.
That's
Which is
impressive
shit. I mean,
because
that's
it's in
that's a-
Louisiana, and
that's a-
Louisiana's having their own issues.
That's why that's all they get because they're having their own problems. They can't borrow from that, and so they're.
Well, now I understand the secede jokes then. Because they are getting fucked over because they wanted to be so independent.
But
Yeah, it's
like I
not working
said,
out.
it's not most of the people there. It's just
Enough people that it's a thing. Like,
I mean, enough people in Tennessee.
exactly.
But it's
I understand that too around here. That 80% of the people around me voted for Trump.
That's still depressing.
Like, yeah, there's plenty of liberals, but we are all like pushed into pockets. Like,
Right.
It looks like there's a lot of liberals to us liberals because we surround ourselves with only liberals. But
Correct.
Everyone else around us is a piece of shit.
because
Well,
Republicans
just-
are kind of repulsive.
well,
Yeah, exactly. I would not. I mean, at this point, I would not associate with anybody that considers themselves part of the Republican
But
Party.
just to get a good metric, just go to any local news channel or local news article that is either Biden or Trump, and either way it goes, you will see that 80% of those comments, if not
Yeah.
more.
I was blocked
Are-
5 times today in the comment sections.
Fine job.
You were
Fine job.
blocked?
Blocked by 5 people.
Blocked by 5 people.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, I think that talking about Houston right now will be a good segue to because I think we feel for the people in Texas. I want to give before we move on. I want to give another plug to the mutual aid. Again, please visit our social media. We'll have links to that, and again on the show notes at apostatepod.com, I will have the image that has the various mutual aid that you can donate to. Those people do need your help.
And please pay attention to which ones. Like, get it from a reputable source. I double checked the ones that are going to be posted. I checked with people down in Texas to verify that these were the correct Venmos and PayPal accounts. There are fake ones going out.
Of course,
So
someone else trying to profit off a disaster.
grifters are going to grift.
Yeah, this is a cap of the week.
But I wanted to kind of segue into what we like to call a weekly segment, a cab of the week, and we're still kind of talking about Texas. And Al, what are the fine police in Houston doing to help the people in that area who have been devastated by this natural disaster? And how are they helping to make sure they are safe and secure and healthy?
They deployed plainclothes officers in unmarked vehicles to look for anybody who is burglarizing residences or businesses during the power outage.
So they're diverting the wellness checks and the, helping people to prevent people from surviving. Because we know in natural disasters, theft does, of course, go up. Now, there's some that, some exploit and go into business, but a lot of people are some of them are just, they need food, they need whatever they need, water.
Imagine a single parent who wasn't able to get to the store to get whatever their kids needed before the storm hit, and they're at home alone, or even a family. What if the father was out at work, mother was out at work, and they just didn't get to the store, and then they have kids at home? Those are people that are going to go out and steal.
Right.
They're gonna make sure their kids are fed. They're gonna, don't have enough clothes. Well, that store over there does. I'm gonna go get some warmer clothes for my baby.
Well, somebody please think of the corporations.
Right.
Right. Well, but I guess the biggest issue is, of course, we're not saying that crime is fine, but the police are prioritizing property once again over life.
That's
their job. That's what the police are there to do. They're to protect rich people's property.
Yeah,
they should be out. They should be out doing wellness checks. There's homes that people may not even be able to leave yet. I'm sure they have plenty other to do than to be in plain clothes, to be sneaky and catch people. I mean, it's irritating.
And that's why we need to abolish the police.
So due to this being a natural disaster, the penalty enhancements can lead up to a 20-year prison sentence.
A 20? That's fucking outrageous.
You can also help the prison industrial complex make some more profits. Another way that people are making profits off of disaster.
So we see you're suffering, and we catch you trying to survive. Let's go and tack on 20 years to what would otherwise be an 8-month sentence just because it's a natural disaster. Because fuck you, that's why. I mean, that's what they do. And it's fucking atrocious. I mean, but that's what they vote for. Because, would you say the majority of Texas is pro-police?
Oh, yeah.
The majority of Texas is Republican.
Yeah.
Like, Texas is so large, like you said, there's plenty of liberals in Texas. Like San Antonio, Houston.
Austin for sure. Austin for sure.
Yeah, they have huge liberal centers, but the same thing is true in Tennessee to a smaller extent. It doesn't matter how liberal those huge cities are. Texas is so huge that you're never going to get those idiots in the middle of nowhere to not support Trump, to actually vote blue, to vote for their interest even. Like, that's why Texas will always remain red, is because it's so large and all those people in the smaller counties.
So Austin, as many liberals are there, though, like they're still like, how here in Knoxville
maybe
we
Austin
deal with
needs
the
to secede from Texas. That's what
right.
they need to do.
Well,
the liberals' pockets need to secede from Texas.
You know how they do the sweeps here for the houseless community. They go in and take their tents and all that.
Clear out the tents, yeah.
Well, they've been doing that very aggressively down in Austin. There's a group called Stop the Sweets down there that I've been getting updates from them. And I think just a couple of days before this storm, they did a sweep and took all of their tents, everything that could keep them
That's by
comfortable.
design.
Fortunately,
That's intentional.
Stop the Sweep has been putting people into hotels. I know there's a couple other organizations that are working to get the houseless community into warm housing during all of this. They're going to need a lot of funding, so I'll be including their information in the post too. So,
and you said earlier that Texans will always vote for the GOP. And, of course, they voted again for Ted Cruz, who I'm sure...
He's in Cancun right now.
Oh, he's not taking care of his Texas constituents?
I saw some meme earlier being like, Ted Cruz can be like a treasonous suck up to Trump with the insurrection and this at the same time. He's that big of an asshole that we can fit both of these on him.
That was Seth Rogen, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Seth Rogen.
I fucking love Seth Rogen, man. He has zero chill. He's like what a complete asshat. I mean,
if I had his platform, I would be too.
Yeah.
It was funny, but yeah, he was photographed heading to Cancun, and that's kind of like a political faux pas, isn't it? I mean, don't like during natural disasters. That's when they try to get photo ops and shit.
Will
at
it
least
change anything?
And he could have
they won't
thrown
for
some
anything
fucking
else.
paper towels at them or something before heading out.
Yeah.
I forgot the paper towel launch in Puerto Rico where he's just chucking paper towels. Oh, what a shit show!
I guess paper towels don't work much with ice.
No, but it's again, it's I find it ultimately depressing that again the police resort to utilizing their force that could be towards helping in a natural disaster to once again protect rich
Serving
people's
and
property.
protecting.
I mean,
the
one
community.
thing that I try to explain, one of my leftist views that I struggle with trying to explain to people are always like, the system's broken, the system's broken. The system isn't broken.
It was designed
The system
that way.
is made to work this way. The police are not broken. It was designed to work this way. They're designed to protect the rich. They're designed to do that. They're designed to fuck the little people over and protect
the
upper
origin
class.
of cops didn't it have to do with catching slaves? You know, and then later on, hold on, I gotta catch what I was thinking of.
Well, while you're
Police
doing that,
catch poles.
it was while you're thinking about that. I was thinking about the police in a movie that we all just watched recently.
Oh, yeah.
And Judas and the Black Messiah.
That was. What did you guys think of that movie?
You know, that was a very powerful movie.
I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was better than the Spike Lee movies that have been coming out recently. Have you seen Black Klansman and Defy Blood and stuff like that?
You know, I hadn't seen those yet.
I think that Spike Lee has been trying to nail this, like, you know, pro black revolutionary formula, but he just like is a little heavy-handed. He like puts in real footage of like brutal murders and stuff, like real footage. And I think that's, you know, I think that's good. But I think that what's his name, Shaka King?
Shaka Khan, I think. Was
Shaka,
it?
yeah.
Is it Khan or King?
I think it's King.
You may be
I
right.
think he nailed what Spike Lee's been trying to do, and it was the most leftist movie I've seen in being pushed in the mainstream. Pretty much the whole formula of it was that the Black Panthers were trying to, you know, they weren't trying to radicalize things. They were trying to bring together the community, and
Right.
that's why.
But I mean, it should absolutely be a leftist movie because the Panthers were left as fuck.
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah, and that's why they hated them. And like that's why the U.S. government hated them so much. Not only because they were black, but because they were socialist black. Because it was black and leftist, which is like the scariest fucking thing in the world to them. Martin Sheen did a fantastic job.
Oh my God,
too.
Martin Sheen! It
Jesus
was so
Christ.
weird because
He looked completely different, but I could hear his voice, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's Martin
I knew
Sheen.
it was Martin Sheen, but of course I'm a you know diehard West Wing fan, and I'm like, this is Martin Sheen. I'm like, oh my God, he did such a great job in that role. In fact, I thought
everyone did a great
They
job
really
in the
did. It
role.
was it was well cast, I thought, and the dialogue, especially the speeches, the charged. You know, chants, everything that they did, and their rallies I thought was really powerful. And
It really, I mean, it's a true story too. And
it is a true story.
They focused on his love story as well because his son grew up to take his position pretty much and is still working right now. People were posting, you know, the cops and Klan members shoot at his grave his grave now, and his son was out there on a picture I saw.
I know we're kind of on a tangent regarding this movie, but there was a really powerful scene when he's holding the newspaper with Emmett Till. You know, and that was, you know, if you the story, I listened to a podcast called Getting Off, and it's they're criminal defense attorneys, and they covered that case, and when they did a deep dive on the Emmett Till, and that was one of the hardest series of episodes to listen to.
How old
regarding
were
what
you
they
when you
did.
learned about Emmett Till?
Oh, geez. I was probably in my 20s.
Honestly, it was late. It was late.
Yeah,
it
I
was
did not
late.
learn about it in
It's
school.
because I grew up in white ass America.
Yeah.
They don't teach
I wonder,
that shit.
like, I tell
was
people
old.
that I was fortunate to go to school in Kansas, and it was Johnson County, Kansas, when I was in 4th through 6th grade. I had the most thorough education on civil rights issues during that period than I've ever had in my life. I learned about Emmett Till. I learned a lot about the Holocaust and slavery. And then we moved to, this was 4th, 5th grade. They were starting to introduce these topics. 6th grade, I think, is when they brought in Emmett Till, which is still elementary school there. Mm-hmm. So, and then I moved to Tennessee at 13 and just like skimmed over all that stuff. And I had a teacher that he realized that I was doing the bare minimum in school, so he started challenging me. We were one of the first schools that had computers in the classrooms, and I love
those old ass Macintoshes.
No, it wasn't the PCs.
Oh, really?
We had PCs in our classrooms. We didn't have we had the Macs in the computer lab.
Okay.
But each classroom got had a PC in it. And I fell in love with this computer, and I wanted to spend all the time on it. So my teacher back then would give me these big books to read. And if I passed the AR test, the accelerated reader test on it, I would get to skip recess for a week to play on the computer.
Did they have that Prodigy internet that we had back? Because we're not far from age, and that's what we had.
We didn't. I don't even think it had internet on it.
Okay.
It was just the computer that I was fascinated by.
Right.
But some of the books he gave me had to do with Holocaust. I remember one of them that really stuck with me. Even now, I think about it a lot. Was the Ryan White. A kid in the 80s who got AIDS through a blood transfusion and ended up getting picked on and bullied, called gay. He was chased out of a few towns and stuff. So, when I think about, he had a role in, exposing me to these things and getting me to think about other people at a young age. And I'm thankful for that. But, yeah, I think about all the people running around who racism isn't real and all of this stuff, and it's just you know what? If it would have started back when these kids were younger.
I've actually HBO. The movie premiered on HBO. HBO has been doing a fantastic job of pushing black stories forward. They've with the show Watchmen. That highlighted the Tulsa massacre, and so many people didn't even know what that was before that show came on. I knew what it was, but I didn't know the extent of it. I remember I talked to somebody at Ask, and they were like, I didn't really like that scene. They had airplanes flying over and stuff. They were like, oh, that's a little much. And I'm like, double-checked. I'm like, oh, no, wait, that's actually real. The airplanes did literally bomb the fucking place.
I remember that conversation, too.
And so not only that, but they also had Lovecraft Country, which covered Tulsa, too, and they also covered Emmett Till. They
have a whole section for black voices.
Oh yeah, no, they're really pushing forward. I Will Destroy You. They just have they're really good at pushing black voices forward and having premium content.
I just go to that section now too.
Yeah,
it was just. It's kind of depressing what I missed growing up, because in Indiana and even in San Antonio, but I was in high school in San Antonio, so the majority of my education came from Indianapolis. And, we got Martin Luther King. I think that's pretty much the extent of it, of what they covered. I was oblivious to, Emmett Till and the atrocities that occurred to the black community.
I think it's weird that I got this education in Kansas, of all places, though.
That's strange.
You think about Kansas is the same. The whole reason we have the flying spaghetti monster is because of Kansas.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I don't know how much of a tangent this is, but the way that black history is also taught is the way they push Martin Luther King forward is they try to, he was really peaceful. And if you're not peaceful, then it's wrong. And you just have to look at this, at how he did things. They try to use Martin Luther King as a way to tell people to calm down and do things differently now.
Yeah, they always presented the civil rights movement as largely peaceful and glossed over.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King refused to denounce riots.
Yeah, so they completely gloss over that, at least in my education.
That's the way that
I'm having
as
to
we saw with the
relearn.
riots last time, they were like, Martin Luther King would be so upset at the way things are going right now. That was the kind of the attitude. And that's the way they taught that stuff, too.
They did,
they
absolutely
taught
did.
it so that you can see that. And that is also why, what have you been taught about the Black Panther movement. They're violent. They're whatever. I mean, the movie was also honest. You know, they did have guns. They were pro-gun rights. We're all leftists here. We enjoy guns, so we agree with them too. Like, and you know, the movie was honest about it. You know, they did have members that like shot at the cops, but they did show that like, you know, they were in that situation because the cops were trying to kill them anyways. They were pushed into those situations.
There were some pretty tough scenes to watch, knowing that it was a true story.
I think the ending of where they showed the real life interview with a guy, and then they said that he was trying to justify it in the interview. Like,
he really was.
History's gonna look good on me in some way. Was kind of what he was saying, and then he killed himself once it aired. That was the nail at the end of it.
That was when the mic fucking dropped for me. I was watching it. I was like,
he killed himself once it aired on TV. Like what It's like he didn't realize until it like was actually shown that it hit him.
That was a perfect mic drop moment for that movie of what his actions caused. And you were talking earlier about the Klansmen and the cops, and you shared something on Facebook several days ago about how the government broke up the Black Panther, and yet
KKK is still around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they're doing really well right now too, growing.
People will tell you they aren't. I mean, like that's the argument that me and Al get in pretty vicious with liberals online. KKK is not real. I've never seen them.
They
Nazis
are actively
aren't real.
recruiting. I've seen flyers from people in many different states that they get in Ziploc bags on their lawns.
Yeah, people don't realize that this shit is not a thing of the past. This isn't a thing that happened.
And we have a bit worse. Well, I don't know if worse, but the KKK isn't actively committing crimes openly like they were back then. But the base is. But there's other white nationalist organizations that are.
I think it's neo-Nazis that are more doing neo-Nazi groups. You just have to kind of like bubble term that. Because they're so fragmented themselves, the neo-Nazi groups.
Do you guys think that with Trump out of office and now, I guess, all but silenced?
Trump's coming out of.
He's all but silenced right now. For now, he's all but silenced.
He's been going back on Fox News. He's ready. He's like getting ready to start scheduling rallies.
Interesting. So we think the rise of this will continue to happen in these groups because we saw them rise or at least make themselves more publicly known during his presidency.
So the good news is Proud Boys is probably going to be dead and gone soon.
Well, that's because their leader
turned out to be a narc.
Maybe they'll make a movie about him.
I read
the anti-black messiah. They're going to have a movie about
the
Proud Boys leader
need
turning on them.
Gavin McInnes and that fucking Tario dude. They don't need that kind of attention. I don't want to see movies based on them.
Oh no,
Fuck
I was
that.
making a joke.
You say that now, but he might kill himself when it airs. So there's that as well.
I mean,
but
I'm sure they're pretty pissed off at that fact.
Proud Boys are fractioning.
Oh yeah,
really, because so many of them are getting arrested.
We saw that happened when like they were the the blue boys, and they turned on the blue in a minute.
So in the Capitol riot, it came out that one of the chapters, I think it was the Kansas City chapter, had recruited a woman. That's causing friction because they've been very...
And we're called the Proud Boys, okay?
Yeah, we're the Proud Boys. They had a Proud Boys girls, girls group of like wives and girlfriends.
They need a proud they them.
But they kind of denounced that. One of the leaders came out and was like, if you want to support your husbands in this, then if you want to support this, get married, cook dinner, become a housewife, all of this stuff, have kids. But you don't need to be in a group doing like organizing and stuff like that. Leave that to the men. So for the Kansas City Proud Boy group to go out and actively recruit, they approached her to join the Proud Boys. So that right there is going to cause a lot of division. And then of course Enrique Tarrio coming out that he was a narc. That's not looking good. Like I don't see Proud Boys lasting too much longer.
But they'll just fraction into other neo-Nazi groups.
They are going to break up into other groups, and what are those groups going to do?
Yeah.
Because they still do feel empowered, just not under that name.
Do you think that the smaller neo-Nazi groups are more dangerous than the larger ones because there's less worry about them doing something extreme? they have less oversight. Like, the Proud Boys.
So, like our local group here, which, actually, they've connected with a national group, the NCS 131. But when it was just Legions of St. Ambrose, other than the Highland fire, which is like, no, like we don't know for sure it was them. There's a lot of speculation it was them, and for good reason. But the police haven't come out and said it was them.
I wonder why.
They've been investigated and stuff, but I don't know how far that's all gone.
I wonder how much that's on their priority list.
But they haven't gone out and attacked anybody in downtown. They had, so that group for the longest time, they didn't they were an annoyance. They were a nuisance in our community.
They do graffiti and
shit. But to be fair,
and
we also
harass people.
We didn't have the Pride events last year that they would typically show up to.
They were there, but they never at a Pride event. The only time they got in a fight at a Pride event was with anti-fascists going to a garage. They did not attack random people. They harassed people. They absolutely did harass people. They were an annoyance.
So they're just an annoyance more than a danger right now, you think?
They were then. Now that they have joined NCS 131, because it is a street fighting gang. They consider themselves an MMA gang. So that to me makes it seem like they're willing to escalate and they want to get in those fights and they want to be more aggressive. Of course, their head guy, Craig Spaulding, has caught a few charges. He got a couple. I think it became like a public. I can't remember. There's one over the summer that him and 6 other Nazis got arrested out, kind of Kingsport area.
Okay.
For getting in a fight at a rally.
It wasn't an MMA fight.
No, it wasn't. Actually, it was kind of funny because it looked to be like they pissed off some boomer.
Oh, yeah. I remember you telling me about that.
But then, so Craig Spaulding also got a DUI back in, I think, October out in Sevierville. So we haven't heard shit from them in months, and I think it's because of all the charges they're facing. So,
good.
I mean, them getting the charges has been beneficial for us. They don't care about COVID, so... It's not like they're hiding because of that.
You mean they don't wear masks to their Klan rallies? I thought that was their whole thing.
So something happened yesterday, Al. The world became instantly a less racist and happier place with the sad, sad passing of Rush Limbaugh. First off, I'm loving the memes that have coming out of this. I mean,
yes.
I'm a meme whore, and but I mean, the guy was absolutely. Do you think he was? Do you think Rush Limbaugh is or was responsible for the GOP we see today?
Yes,
one of the main ones.
I think he contributed to the existence of Fox News.
I think they stood on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I think they stood on his shoulders.
So much of what we see as Republicans today, I think he paved the way for it.
I mean, I always say this. This is another thing that gets me into it with liberals, but I really think that these people are just shitty people. The reason Rush Limbaugh got famous is because these people look up to him because they want to be him. They want to be this misogynist asshole always smoking a cigar.
Was like 30 years ago. He was established
by a misogynist asshole smoking cigars, talking his mind. He says whatever he wants.
But he was thought to be crazy for a while. Then people started taking him seriously, and then it's still Fox News. I think was inspired by him.
Oh, 100%.
When I think of all what we know of media today, I think we can point back to him as what's created it. And we know that Fox News, Rush, and all these other networks are pushing people further and further right. So yeah, sure, they're shitty people, but maybe if they didn't have people like Rush and Fox News anchors pushing them to be shittier people,
There's still a connection that they're seeing in these people. Like that they see what they want to see because it speaks to a part of them.
We should toast to them.
We should absolutely toast to the world being a much better place.
Rest
So
in
thank
piss,
you for dying.
Bastard.
You-
I will
we
always
are
celebrate
not
the deaths of...
celebrating-
I am.
No. Okay,
I'm
never
celebrating.
mind.
Fuck him.
I was going to say, we're not
fuck him.
celebrating
I am
his
celebrating.
death. We're celebrating a world without him
I'm celebrating
in it.
both. He can fucking rest in burn hell
and here's
for all I
something.
care.
So I looked up a list of some of the most outrageous things he said, and this one tickled me fucking pink. Do you care if I read that to you guys real quick?
Go for it.
Okay. So this is actually only number 17 of numerous of these outrageous things that he says. So I'm going to quote him here. Liberals should not be allowed to buy guns, nor should they be allowed to use computer keyboards or typewriters, word processors or emails, and they should have their speech controlled. If we did those 3 or 4 things, I can't tell you what a sane, calm, civil, fun-living society we would have.
Isn't this the free speech?
Was that
crowd?
Hitler or was
No.
that him?
It's like the
was he
Second Amendment
was he
crowd.
paraphrasing Hitler?
Hold on. Take guns out of their possession, out of the hands of liberals. Take their typewriters and their keyboards, because he's redundant as fuck, away from them. Don't let them anywhere near a gun. Again, control their speech.
Oh, so he wants to take away our guns.
He's redundant as shit, but here we go. You would wipe out 90% of the crime, 85 to 95% of hate, and 100% of lies from society. Go fuck yourself.
Jesus
I will always
fucking
celebrate the
Christ.
death of a fascist.
And the people who go around talking about their freedom are the people like listening to this shit.
Oh,
He's
he's
speaking to them, and then they go around to have their fucking freedom rallies.
It's their
Fuck
freedom.
them.
He's absolutely
They want
fascist.
their freedom.
So another guy, so an African American caller came in and he said, "Take that bone out of your nose and call me back."
He apparently in the 80s
Their
had a
AIDS.
segment on his his show where he would like name the people who have died of AIDS during that like time period and fucking mock them.
No, in a celebratory manner. There were air horns and like music celebrating the deaths of these people of the gay community. That
So
was dying
please
from
don't
AIDS.
fucking tell me that Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah,
pushed,
no, I'm
Don't tell me
celebrating
that
his
Rush.
death.
All right, don't tell me Rush Limbaugh pushed these people to be worse. No, they saw what they wanted.
Exactly.
The GOP, Trump, Limbaugh is a reflection of themselves. They see these people and they're like, I want what he has. I want to be able to do, say, whatever that guy is doing. Trump, Limbaugh, they want to see themselves in these people.
I don't think that they're pushing. I think there's a lot of people if
They're
they
pushing
weren't
to become
fed
more
this,
radical, but-
if they didn't have this constant rhetoric, and they had like our
They can put
rhetoric,
seeds.
they could right. But
they
when
can be red-pilled,
when they're in an echo
but-
bubble and it's all they're hearing. They don't know any different to an extent.
And I mean, it's a part of social thing. If everyone around you's a piece of shit, you have to be a piece of shit to
right,
fit in.
right.
But
And
that
they don't
doesn't
see
make you any
themselves
less of a
as
piece of
pieces
shit. You know, when they tell me that a serial killer was really abused as a kid, I don't really, feel that much sorry for him. There's plenty of people that go through this shit and come out of it. We've all lived in Tennessee with these shitheads around us, and we gravitated to people like us, just like they're gravitating to people like them. I mean,
Yeah, I actively sought out people who were better. So
leftists and the right wing both deal with the same issues of, like, we both deal with toxic masculinity, problems with capitalism, and they just deal with it in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
well, we blame the capitalists and they blame people of color, gay people.
Yeah, and the same thing with,
marginalized communities.
and the same thing with like the left growing up with toxic masculinity, and instead we try to fix it, and they grow up with it, and they go into it harder, and they don't see how their toxic masculinity that's part of their lives is just becoming a part of their personality.
Well, I don't
Like,
want
to-
we all
meme
deal,
I saw
and
the
they blame it
other
on
day-
women. They blame it on women. You know,
The meme I
It's-
saw the other day that showed the Capitol siege, and it said, I guarantee every one of these people have said, my parents spanked me and I turned out fine.
But I wasn't always left because I guess I was a reflection of my parents' views at the time, but it doesn't take much to have civility and morality to know that what the right was pushing for and who they were demonizing and and what they were championing made me what I am today as a leftist.
Yeah, I wasn't. Our house wasn't really political. My dad and I now, which I didn't grow up with my dad, but we have a good relationship now. We go back and forth on politics all the time, even though he's center, but like a slightly left of center, I think, slightly. We go back and forth on politics, but like at home with my mom, politics weren't discussed, so I was kind of free to form my own opinions. And I remember getting in trouble at one point in school because I like threatened some girl that was like harassing a gay couple at our school, and it pissed me off. So like even in high school, like I had more open-mindedness, and I was down in fucking Coffee County, Tennessee, which is pretty small, was even smaller back then. Like there's still a lot of homophobia down in that little area. So for being in the 1990s and stepping out and being like, no, this isn't okay, was kind of big back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't take very long to when I started paying attention more politically, and especially the things around me, and especially and because I guess I went to a college, and at the time I was still kind of right, but then I started getting friends that were in the LGBTQ community, and then, in Kentucky, that's not a good place for them to be, and that was all GOP controlled. And I did, even when I moved back to Tennessee, and a lot of that actually had to do with my atheism, honestly, as I became more atheist.
This goes back to our last episode.
You're right. I think it was kind of that probably drove me to it, because the religious aspects of that.
When I think back, I think one of the biggest things for me, and still has always been free speech and expression, and Christianity has been the biggest part of trying to limit that in history, modern history, like history through its whole career.
I think
the Christianity and the right are combined. They are the same.
I think when I learned the Constitution and the Bill of Rights that I took them seriously, and I thought they meant what they said. So when I read that like everybody has these rights, I believed at a young age that everybody had these rights, because I remember my brother learning about this first. I remember him like memorizing the preamble and like repeating it over and over at home because he had tests on it. This was back in Texas again, or I'm sorry, Kansas. And then shortly after, I learned it, and it's just like I held those words to mean what they said. Like I expected, when we all have these rights, everybody had these rights. So as I grew up, and I realized not everybody has the same rights. Like that's pushed me to be who I am. Like,
and you guys, we've talked about religious restricting rights, and I think it's a perfect segue to our next story. Do you guys see what South Carolina just did? South Carolina, on Wednesday, overwhelmingly passed a bill banning nearly all abortions. And they're following the lead of other states, which is basically all these would go into effect if the Supreme Court were to overturn Roe v. Wade. Let me talk about this bill real quick.
That's kind of what they're hoping for.
They are absolutely
trying to do this to push that.
They're going ahead and pushing all these bills now, so when the Supreme Court addresses the initial case, that these laws go into effect immediately. Because
that's exactly why Trump put in Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, and Neil Gorsuch, because I don't think Roberts would go either way, and the other three on the liberal side. But
Amy Coney Barrett said during the her confirmation that she would actually not.
Because I believe her.
That.
Oh yeah,
I know. I don't either. But
she said that her decisions were based on God and her faith in God. So
okay.
Who believes that one bit? So let me kind of cover this bill real quick, because this is
shit. She's a piece of shit.
This is a shit show of a bill. It's kind of similar to others, but let me just this is the South Carolina Fetal Heartbeat and Protection from Abortion Act. It requires doctors to perform ultrasounds to check for a heartbeat in the fetus. If one is detected, the abortion can only be performed if the pregnancy was caused by rape or incest, or the mother's life is in danger. Now, here's the kicker. The bill would not punish a pregnant woman for getting an illegal abortion, but the person who performed the abortion could be charged with a felony sentenced up to 2 years and fined $10,000 if found guilty.
So I read that article. Does it include anything about going out of state? Because I know there's been some bills that if you go out of state, you could still be punished.
I don't know how they have jurisdiction in that. I mean, I'm not sure how that would work. I really don't know about that, but I've
Fascism at its finest.
I think Georgia may have been. I can't remember. Was it Georgia?
But it's all going to be certainly passed by the governor. He's already said he wants to sign it as soon as possible. It just needs to go through a small House procedural vote.
He may
South
have
Carolina's
signed it
another one of those
today,
pieces of shit.
actually, because I got a notification from Planned Parenthood saying they're suing. They're asking for donations or gifts. If anybody wants to give Planned Parenthood a gift so that they can help fight this, that'd be awesome.
So, I guess a dumb part of the story is apparently the law wasn't strict enough for one Republican lawmaker who was like on the floor and got so pissed off he took his papers and just chucked them in the air and like walked out because I guess
so dramatic.
what a baby.
I mean,
let's talk about how restricted that would be because. Some heartbeats through some methods can be detected in 5.5, 6 weeks.
Yeah,
and
how
many
that's
people?
That's a basic ban.
Yeah.
You don't even realize that it's there.
Most
That's
even know they're
ban.
pregnant.
Some people don't know until after 6 weeks that they're even pregnant.
And this is by design. You know, they know this. They try to push this heartbeat thing because, like, just saying heart. Oh my God! It has a heart. There's a thing that's bumping in there. That's where the soul comes from.
Their brain's not fully developed, so they can't.
The soul doesn't come from the brain; it comes from the heart.
They can't
Poor little
survive
thing.
outside of the.
I know what a heart is, and I know that it beats.
Oh, speaking of uteruses, I saw a meme earlier today that if they named Texas Power Grid a uterus, then they'd regulate the fuck out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think he said the guy who was like all pissy and like threw his papers in for him that he wanted basically even from conception the fetus to have the same rights.
Every soul.
Well, Tennessee right now has one up that I'm trying to think what it is. It's if a father comes forward and said he doesn't want an abortion, then that could stop it. But that, like, you cannot require DNA evidence that he is the father. So
that doesn't take DNA evidence from a.
I mean, we know this isn't going to go anywhere, but this is how absurd of a bill is that because apparently, I think so. From the text of the bill I read, that once he voluntarily says he's the father, like he can't rescind that or recant that later. I think, according to the bill, this is
which means you're taking care of that
Correct.
child,
Correct.
but that's still like. Without requiring any kind of evidence for paternity, that means if I got pregnant tomorrow, you could step up and be like, "I'm the father of that baby," and stop me from getting an abortion. And have nothing.
What do they have when two people come up and be like, "I'm the father"? No, I'm the father. Like, how do they solve that problem?
They King Solomon it and just split the fetus in half.
They split the fetus in half.
Seriously though, I think if you're married. Then the person, your husband, would automatically be, because that's how it's already set up.
Because that's the entire purpose of these abortion laws, is to control women. That's what they want. Fascism 101.
But it really has nothing to do with the DNA either, because no one, who cares if I can claim that child is mine? Your body's not fucking mine. I can't tell you what to do with it.
Right.
So that the whole thing of this, and it's not going to go anywhere. But the fact that they even had the fucking desire to even put this bill out there just shows what they fucking are, and it's disgusting.
They use religion to justify it.
Did you ever see the Reddit? You probably did, but the Reddit post about a guy who talked his girlfriend out of an abortion, and so she signed over her rights. It's like, okay, if I'm not gonna, or if I'm gonna keep this baby, you're gonna take it after it's born. You're gonna raise it. They went to court, and she signed over like all her rights to the child, but she paid child support, paid double the child support every single month. And he went on Reddit and whined and cried about having to take care of this baby, called her a deadbeat mom, and Reddit lit into him over it. Because, she didn't have to. She could have just paid her minimum child support. She didn't. She paid double every single month. She took, did her financial responsibility, but she made it very clear that she did not want to raise a child. So fuck you.
There's that other story that I know you guys have had to have seen. It's where apparently this lady had talked her mother out of having an abortion, and then they had listed her as, I guess.
Yes, I saw that.
Where I guess
but she was
as
an
care.
anti-abortion person too, so like a pretty well-known advocate.
Right, and then so CPS came and removed the child, and now she's like, I'm not ready to have a child. I'm not ready. So it's the leopards ate my face moment, which is another Reddit thing that's great. Which is where you see those.
It's a conservatives approaching the point type thing.
Yeah,
right?
when it's you and not me. Because
right.
how many times do we see Republicans and GOP who push against these anti-abortion and then fly their messages across the U.S. to get those abortions?
Right.
You guys are really triggering my anti-natalism right now. Like, I'm just thinking about these poor fucking people that brought into this world just to be put through this fucking bullshit. Like, think of that kid in that Reddit post you were talking about that's growing up in this fucking situation.
Think about all the kids currently growing up.
Yeah, exactly.
To be honest. I mean, they're constantly hearing about global warming, like my kid who has dealt with some depression has quoted the climate change as one of the things because they're constantly hearing that they're inheriting
a dead world.
Yeah.
Right, that they may not even see their 30s.
Like wildlife
and
is
then
dead.
There's this pandemic now.
They have to... If they ever want to see large animals, they have to watch a fucking documentary.
Right. It's thinking about kids. Like I
think
love
one of
my child. I don't think I would do anything different. I often wonder though what kind of service did I do them by bringing them into this world the way it is. Of course, I didn't know it was going to be that way.
Of all my radical leftist views, air quotes, I think one of the ones that people have the hardest time getting behind is I'm an anti-natalist. I think that having kids is detrimental to society at this point.
I support,
at this point,
people talk shit about the Gen Z not wanting kids. I support them 100%.
Yeah.
When my kid tells me that they will never, ever have children, I don't whine and cry about not being able to be a grandparent. You know what? Good. Good. I'm proud of you. No, I completely see why our children do not want to have kids.
Yeah,
if I had the insight that they had, I don't think I would have had a child. Once again, I love my kid, but at the same, I didn't plan to bring him into a world where everything around him is like fucked up.
Right.
And we didn't know We were raised by Gen X that did nothing. Like, this stuff wasn't brought to our attention. We figured out how fucked up shit was on our own.
And the financial divide is getting even worse, and it's not getting better for the younger crowd. While inflation is getting harder and harder to exist as it is. So think of it even of the younger crowd of what they're going to have to go through because, they're fighting against minimum wage that hasn't changed since 2009, while everything else is skyrocketing. Rent is at a price that is unattainable.
At least they are more radicalized and leftist than even my generation is, though.
Yeah, because we're all about the same generation, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm a little younger than you guys, but you guys are almost Gen X. Are you Gen X?
No, we're both.
I'm
we're
really close to Gen X,
you're late
but
millennials,
I've been told
okay.
many times that I'm a millennial, so
I
guess I'm a millennial.
You have a millennial mindset.
You're on the cusp, but you're still.
You have a millennial mindset. So,
right.
Yeah.
A lot of the music that I'm really into, I'm sure the same's true for you guys, is Gen X music, and I like listening to that old stuff and just not even the music, but even their comic books and stuff, and seeing how their struggles are similar but different than ours. It's still a different struggle. They have this angst, but it is a little different than the way that millennials deal with things.
I've been listening to a lot of more the younger music. They say after 30 you don't really get into new music. I have been. Thank you, Spotify. Sponsor us.
Right. let's get that multi-million-dollar contract, right?
But I set up this playlist that is all protest music, and it's been a lot of this stuff. It's been feeding me is this the younger generation's music, and I've been really enjoying it.
It's not so much a playlist for you because I remember especially over the summer, you had a single song you would just play over and over again, just fuck Donald Trump, and during its chorus, especially when you're in a public area next to people with Trump flags and shit.
My two
I've had
favorite
friends do
stories with that. So once I was at Chipotle picking up a order, and I pull up next to a truck with 2 Trump stickers on it. And it's during the pandemic, so all their seating is outdoors. So I'm like looking around. I'm like, which one of these people are Trump supporters? And I see a guy and his wife and a teenage daughter. And I'm just like, I bet that's them. So I go in and I pick up the order and I come back out to my car and I roll down all my windows, open my sunroof, and I blast that song. And this teenage girl gets this huge smile on her face. This is actually when I had this is the Antifa bus decal on the side of my car, too. So, like, I see her just dancing and smiling and her looking at her dad, just like, haha. And then I back out and pull to where she could see the Antifa bus decal. And the dad just, like, you can see his face. She looks over and her jaw drops, and then mom, like, turns her head real quick, like, what the fuck? I think I made that girl's day, which was great.
Yeah, see, it's those people that, you know, like we said about people, she's stuck in a situation in a family, and you showed her that there's people out there that are decent, unlike her fucking family. And then those are the people that we try to make a community for in the Atheist Society of Knoxville.
There was another time right after Trump lost this last election that I was driving around. I saw somebody with several Trump flags on, and Trump and a thin blue line flag on the back of his truck. Is this the one
where he had his shit at half-mast?
No. I saw those too. But no, I ended up
Trump flag.
I ended up getting into the turning lane to get next to him, and I started. I turned up the "Fuck Donald Trump" song, and I just stood there, and then I turned left. But where I turned left, it looped me back around to the road I was on. When I got back to that road, he was parked there, and he was removing his flags from the back of his truck.
Oh God! I had a friend that. When it was time to vote, the lines were so long that he was like out past like the you can't like do political things line for voting. So he's like, oh, I'm all the way back here. So he played that song like on his phone, standing in line, pissed everybody off.
I went to vote with the Antifa bus.
Yeah.
I parked it to make sure people on the line could see it.
And those were long lines too, so they saw it.
The news was out there recording. I saw the camera guy looking at my car, but he never panned around there.
That's so unfortunate. That would have been so great because they would have 100% included that on their video footage.
I was
100%.
hoping they would. I kept watching them. I'm like, please turn the camera over and show my car.
Well, guys, we are way over time. I'd like to thank everyone who joined us for our third episode. Again, you can find us on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Again, please visit our website to get those links to donate the money to those mutual aid organizations down in Texas. You can find us on our get the show notes and the links to the articles tonight on apostatepod.com. And we'll see you guys for the next record. Thanks for joining us.
Go donate to Planned Parenthood, too, so they can save reproductive rights.
Thank you all very much.
Apostates on the fringe. Apostates on the fringe. Apostates on the fringe. Apostates.
The views and opinions of the hosts of Apostates on the Fringe do not represent the opinions and views of the Atheist Society of Knoxville.
DNA's fucking irrelevant. No one has the right over the woman.
Thanks, Kat. No, let's leave that in there.